When Glass started working on the trilogy, he was already familiar with writing to images. He made his name with a 5-hour opera, Einstein on the Beach, writing to the shifting tableau of the avant-garde theatre director Robert Wilson. Before that, he'd evolved a highly minimalist sound, heavy on repetition. The Qatsi trilogy is more lyrical and gave Glass the chance to finesse how music can generate an emotional response to images. You talk about how it's all about measuring the distance between the image and the music.
I'll give you an example. There's an image in the music of planes landing. There are a lot of things about the image that are interesting, but I took one thing. And the one idea, and I can say it in words, is the fact that these very heavy machines are floating in the air. I wanted the planes to look very light. So I wrote a piece for voices.
In the second film, Power Qatsi, Glass's music takes an even greater hold over the visuals. Its stunning opening sequence, shot at a gold mine in Brazil, was the result of a kind of musical osmosis.
Godfrey found a documentary made by Cousteau of that same place. So I had the film, and I wrote the music for that place. And the filmmaker, the cinematographer, had a Walkman, and on the Walkman he was listening to the music while he was filming. So we completely changed, we turned it around totally. And not only that, but the men working the mine wanted to hear the music. So in other words,
what did they say?
Tudo bem. That's what they said.
Which for people who don't speak Portuguese.
Means very, very good. It's more than very good. Tudo bem means very good, but it means when you do it with two thumbs, it's damn good.
If they said they didn't like it, would you have changed it?
No. But that wasn't going to happen because the music was from there. The music was inspired by them.
Glass went on to work with other more mainstream directors, always striving to influence the creative vision of the film from the outset. A Buddhist and active supporter of the Tibetan cause, he provided the music for Martin Scorsese's 1998 film Kundun about the Chinese occupation of Tibet in the 1950s. He began writing the score from the screenplay before a reel of film was shot.
I wanted to put the music of the scene in Thelma Schoonmaker's hands while she was editing. She wasn't working from what they call a temp track, a temporary soundtrack, which has become the bane of everyone's existence. It was my intuition and conviction, in fact, that for the music and the image to be organically entwined, they have to be born at the same time, that there's no other way to do it.
Glass honed a signature movie sound with The Truman Show and The Hours, which won him an Oscar nomination.
Baking the cake to show him that we love him.
Otherwise he won't know we love him.
That's right.
Now he's reuniting with Godfrey Reggio on another film project, Savage Eden. It's about what they see as the new big global issue, the ideological battle between consumerism and fundamentalism. How much does the sort of fundamentalism of the Bush administration bother you and perhaps the inability to come...
They're the same as all the others. The trouble is that they're not any better. Whether it's Christian fundamentalism or Muslim fundamentalism or whatever kind of values you want to talk about. And I feel it's bogus and it's misleading, that it leads not towards human happiness, but towards more suffering.
Despite the serious subject matter, the film is being conceived as a comedy involving one of the main writers of The Simpsons, George Meyer.
We've had a number of talks with George, and he's met with us, and he's very interested. Where he will be in this process, I don't know. He may be an advisor or a friend or a writer. I mean, I have no way to know right now.
Glass's film scores have made him popular and rich. In turn, some of his more recent concert hall compositions have been criticised for being mainstream to the point of blandness. But your music has become, I mean, this is a terribly simple way of seeing it, but it's become easier to listen to. Would you agree with that?
I hope so.
Why have you made that journey?
To me, music has always been about the audience. Never was any different. I was a performer before I was a composer. The essential experience for me as a composer is playing my music in front of people. To me, music is something which is always a communication.
Does it wind you up though when people say, "Oh, he's just not as
Look, you know, not everyone
rigorous and original as he was"?
Not everyone is a very good listener.
So you think you are just as original as you were?
If you take a blind man and put him in a museum and then he tells you what pictures he saw, what are you going to say? You got to be able to listen. You have to. The practice of listening is as important as the practice of playing. You know, if you're tone deaf, then you know, then do something else.
Philip Glass talking to Madeline Holt, and the Qatsi trilogy at the Cardiff Millennium Centre concludes tomorrow night. Still to come tonight. Will we ever see another great British dancer? And the Culture Show Guide to Making a Short Film. But first, time for our look at what else is happening in arts and culture.
English National Opera have announced that Sean Duran, their artistic director and chief executive, has resigned. This comes as a further setback to the company, who have endured a period of financial instability after the £41 million refurbishment of their home, the London Coliseum. John Berry, previously Director of Opera Programming, will take over the role. Tomorrow, the Office of Fair Trading will decide whether to allow Waterstones to acquire Ottakers. If the deal goes ahead, HMV, Waterstones' parent company, will control at least 23% of the book market. But publishers and authors are concerned that too much power will be held by one central buying team.
For readers going into bookshops, they see the books that are chosen by the Waterstones buyers, and their different selection are in Ottakers. So instead of having two different selections, there will just be one across the country. So that represents a loss of choice and a loss of range.
Waterstones say that books purchased by their central buying team account for only 2% of their overall stock, and each of their bookshops will still maintain its own unique range of titles. The British Independent Film Awards were announced last night. Fernando Merelli's film, The Constant Gardener, swept the board, winning 3 top awards: Best Actor for Ralph Fiennes, Best Actress for Rachel Weisz, and Best Film overall. The UK Poet Laureate, Andrew Motion, has launched a website to preserve recordings of the nation's best-loved poets reading their own work. The readings include extracts by Browning, Yeats and Tennyson, and some of our most important living poets.
As a result of that intimate connection between the person speaking and the work itself, we not only have new understanding of the poem, but we also have new pleasures that not only come out of the way that they actually interpret their own words, but also out of the sound of their voice as such.
And finally, in January, the Culture Show will launch the Great British Design Quest, a competition to discover the best-loved example of British design since 1900. It's a collaboration with the Design Museum, whose exhibition Designing Modern Britain opens on Saturday. You will be able to vote for your favourite British design, which could be anything from the Mini, the red telephone box, to the Spitfire.
The nominations for next year's National Dance Awards, the Oscars of British Ballet, have recently been announced. But one thing's for certain, the winner won't be a Brit, because for the first time, not one was nominated in the Best Male or Female Dancer categories. In recent years, ballet schools in this country have turned their backs on the harsh teaching methods of the past. In the process, have we lost our ability to train world-class dancers? Zina Sarawiwa reports.
A ballet dancer is probably unique amongst athletes in that they need to combine a number of skills in different areas. So, for instance, they need to be flexible, but they also need to have great strength. They need to have speed, but they also need to have endurance. Now, in an athlete, those would sit in different bodies. You wouldn't expect a marathon runner to be a sprinter. In a dancer, you expect all those things within one body.
It is literally a lifelong commitment to working on your physique to be the most perfect you can be. And ballet training is basically all about guts. If you can't stand the heat, get out of the kitchen.
You have to be tough. You have to have a lot of guts and be very tough to do it. That takes a special kind of person.
Ballet is steeped in tradition, and the methods of training have been passed down through generations. In the past, students started young and faced years of strict discipline and a punishing physical regime. But that harsh treatment can now seem outdated. No one denies that training to be a dancer is hard work. Today's ballet teachers have to find the best ways of training the Darcy Bustles of the future while being mindful of modern concerns about the way we deal with children. But critics say that the new training techniques are ineffective. The annual British Dance Awards celebrates the best in dance from around the world. Brits have won prizes in the past, but the lack of British nominees this year is said to reflect an increasing crisis at the heart of British ballet. Has a softer approach to ballet training stripped British dancers of the skills needed to compete on a world stage?
We have got a huge amount of raw talent in this country, and we are in danger of not realising that potential.
In 1989, the Children Act enforced regulations to protect young people from harm and neglect. It had a serious impact on the physical contact teachers could have with pupils. Heidi Rhodes runs her own ballet school, where she instructs 400 children between the ages of 3 and 18.
All right, everyone, grow nice and tall and ready to prepare. I sometimes find it helps to get the children to use their imagination and imagine things so that they can actually understand and feel their bodies without me having to touch. And it does help a child understand not only their own body, but how to use it correctly. Your little finger is cutting the cake as it comes down. And don't squash your hedgehogs. And 7, head, 8. I never would ever want to touch a child to make them feel uncomfortable.
But is this hands-off approach failing British students?
You have to be tactile with the children and with young students to show them how to do it. They don't feel it sometimes. You can't do it by words.
The only way a child will learn that is to be manipulated and pushed into place. Somebody's got to push their bottom forward, pull their stomach in, push their shoulders down, and say, that's what it feels like. Now do a plie.
But teachers are increasingly mindful of the right and wrong ways to treat children. At the Royal Ballet School, they train some of the finest dancers in the country.
This is something that we need to be sensitive about, and some children will be more sensitive about it than others. All of the teachers are aware that they've got to be careful, and certainly nothing should be inappropriate, and is certainly not holding us back in producing the best dancers that we possibly can.
Changes in our society have had other effects on the teaching of dance. Critics say that we've forgotten that ballet is, by its nature, a seriously competitive business. It just isn't a world where everyone can win prizes.
And a 4, D, and 2, 3, 4. Make sure.
I'm afraid in this day and age, competition is not a very fashionable thing. People don't like rejection anymore, they don't like failure. But that is life, I'm afraid. And in the theatre, you're going to come across an awful lot of rejection.
The point about the classical technique in particular, it's about excellence, pure and simple. And if you don't prove that you're the best on a daily basis, you're not going to get anywhere.
Examining bodies face criticism for simplifying results and lowering standards.
Once upon a time you had pass, pass plus, commended, highly commended and honours. There were 5 different categories. We have now got 3, pass, merit and distinction. I think some examining bodies are making exams easier, dumbing it down.
I don't believe that we're not critical of dancers. It's a fiercely competitive training and a competitive profession all the time, from 5 years up to when dancers finish training at around about 18 or 19 years. They're weeded out, and it's very few who actually reach the top.
When Britain's ballet dancers do get there, they compete for jobs and prizes with artists from around the world. Some believe that training methods abroad produce better results.
Russians expect perfection from the moment they step into a classroom. And this high expectation runs right through their training. I've watched a senior boys class where the boys have been dropping like flies. One of them was being physically sick in the corner. The teacher turned to me and said, when the physique gives out, that's when the artist is born.
In the Soviet Union, the attitude was always break the body and the artist will emerge. Well, in a very few cases, this method might produce that result. It might lead the young dancer to a breakthrough, but I would say in the majority of cases, it will actually lead them to a breakdown.
In Britain, the people who think ballet isn't just about physical perfection seem to be winning the argument. Emphasis is laid on the emotional development of dancers.
There's a risk of it becoming a hothouse environment. You've got 10 years to make this perfect dancer. But for me, it's essential to remember that you're not creating an automata that's going to just make movements. You're creating a person who's going to convey ideas. That's what a dancer is.
It is rare to find the combination of qualities needed to become an award-winning ballet dancer. Ballet today is global. It's unrealistic to expect British dancers to have any more of the right stuff than any other nationality. One thing's for sure, teachers won't go back to the disciplinarian approaches of the past.
If you really want creativity, imaginative artists, dancers who will go on to excel to high level, perhaps a better way of doing that is through imagination, through respect, and through a really considered approach to training the dancers of the 21st century.
Zina Sarawiwa reporting. The winners of the National Dance Awards will be announced in January. Still to come on the Culture Show tonight. Britain gears up for the Panto season. And the thrilling film sets of master designer Ken Adam. Exploding cows, slugs in space, nothing is out of bounds in the weird world of short films. Typically made on shoestring budgets, shorts have provided a training ground for generations of filmmakers. Over the years, I've seen hundreds of short films, and last week I was at the Bristol Watershed Arts Centre for the country's premier short film festival, all of which prompted me to offer a few words of advice to budding directors on how to launch their filmmaking careers. Welcome to Brief Encounters, Bristol's 11th annual International Short Film Festival, which this year, as always, has thrown up a selection of the weird, the wonderful, and the what the hell was all that about? The open secret about short films, of course, is that they're rarely an end in themselves. Festivals like these may offer workshops and masterclasses in the art of the short film, but you can guarantee that most of the budding filmmakers here are harbouring dreams of features.
The nice people shop here.
Great filmmakers like Ridley Scott, David Lynch and Martin Scorsese all first made their mark with short films, often by begging favours, borrowing equipment and stealing locations.
Okay, was that the light?
A short film can provide the perfect calling card for the next Orson Welles. So, to help you on your way to Hollywood, let me share with you my 5 essential rules to making a great short film.
From the mind of Mark Kermode, the 5 rules to the short and sweet smell of filmmaking success. Rule number 1, quirky is good.
Ideas which would fall apart over the course of 90 minutes can blossom in just 10. The perfect example of this is a film which played the festival circuit a couple of years ago called Heap of Trouble. A sleepy town minding its own business is bewilderingly invaded by a group of singing naked men.
9 naked men just walking down the road would cause a heap of trouble.
Children are terrorised,
naked men just walking down the road. 9 naked men.
Is it a parade? It's kind
But the advancing naked bodies seem to be having an uncanny magnetic power on the men of the town. It's smart, funny, and utterly unexpected. Among the surprises screened at this year's Brief Encounters Festival was the strangely entitled Industrial Love Dwarf No. 7. It's a freaky conspiracy tale about how love became privatised during the Thatcher years.
That's why there's so many failing relationships.
Another personal favourite is Vinyl Verde, or green vinyl.
Dia, mãe trouxe presente especial.
It's a magical Brazilian fable about a young girl who receives a record player from her mother as a gift, but with special instructions never to play the green vinyl. Every time the daughter disobeys, the poor mum loses a limb. It's all a bit mad, it's also surprisingly moving and really rather marvellous.
Rule number 2. You watch with your ears.
For Hollywood moguls, pictures really do matter, but you'd be amazed by how everyone judges what they see by what they hear. Why else do you think George Lucas spends all that money perfecting ear-bashing sound systems for his multi-million-dollar movies? Because Star Wars is rubbish with the sound turned down. Now, in the case of your short film, you can get away with grainy, wobbly visuals if you've got great sound. But a great picture and lousy sound means you haven't got a film. In Late, the effect of a monumental pile-up actually happening was created entirely on the soundtrack.
Bit of a mess. Hi, Sonny.
In Pool Shark, from a couple of years ago, the sense of impending menace is heightened through its evocative use of sound. So remember, if you want to dazzle the eyes, start with the ears.
Rule number 3. Robert De Niro is waiting.
Although you may be a nobody, that doesn't mean you won't have a shot at impressing the moguls by casting a somebody. One of the most common shortcomings of short films is that while the ideas are great, the acting may not be up to snuff. This is often because the cast consists of the director's family, friends and neighbours. Now, you may be lucky enough to live next door to a really brilliant actor, or you may audition an unsung talent. But if you think your script's good enough, then why not just punt it to the A-list? That's what student filmmaker Lucy Wallace did with her creepy tale of the unexpected Exit. It won the Best Drama Award at a short film festival last year, thanks in part to the weighty presence of John Hurt. So when you're casting your short, aim high.
Rule number 4. Forget the popcorn. Mind the nuts and bolts.
Although originality is almost everything, technical skills do still count for something. The technical competence with which you deliver your clever and original idea can impress the bigwigs no end.
Et merde.
If you can't afford to work with seasoned professionals, then choose ambitious camera people and editors who are just as eager as you to use the film as their calling card.
Rule number 5. Keep your shorts short.
Great thing about short films, of course, is they're short. A crop of the short films at this year's Brief Encounters Festival ran to under 2 minutes. I mean, that's less time than most features take to get through their wretched credits. Remember, brevity is the soul of wit. In short, keep it short.
Hi, can I have a decaf, double short, extra hot, extra dry cappuccino? No sugar, no chocolate.
That's it. Follow these simple rules, bash together your own little gem, get it into a festival, get it noticed, get yourself going, and I'll see you on the Oscars red carpet. And in lieu of my consultancy fee, I'll take 1% of the gross.
Have you got non-fat milk? Skinny? Low fat? Have you got any sweetener?
Ouch. Now, today is the 1st of December and the panto season is kicking off in earnest. But how do the dames, the dancers and the happily ever afters actually make it onto the stage? The Culture Show has been following the directors of 3 very different pantomimes: an amateur production in the Wirral on Merseyside, a traditional pantomime here in Chipping Norton and a celebrity-led show in Stevenage. They've been keeping video diaries of the process too, to help us uncover the naked truth beneath the grease paint.
Hi, my name's Julie Delaney, and I'm the producer and the director of the Chrysanthemums pantomime Dick Whittington.
Hi, this is Paul Laidlaw, director of Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs at the Gorham Theatre in Stevenage.
I'm Caroline Sharman. I'm the director of the theatre at Chipping Norton, and I'm directing the panto Puss in Boots.
Why does my stepmother hate me so much?
I don't know. You're not a Chelsea fan, are you?
In. Is it true you're looking for a wife?
Yeah, could be true. I will say 100% never dreamt I would be doing pantomime in Stevenage or anywhere else in the country. In the years of Boys On.
The challenge with Shane is he would be the first to agree, I think. This is only his second pantomime. This is a whole new approach for him to do acting in a big space. Is quite different. So it's the challenge of not killing that wonderful charm and that lovely relaxed atmosphere, but still be able to travel to the person that's in seat Z, you know.
Salam, salam. In the land of Donegal, we do not say salam. Oh. False alarm, false alarm, false alarm.
You were carried away by my feminine allure and extraordinary beauty.
It's lovely. Very happy. That looks great. Lovely.
When you put the bosoms, they make you do things that you wouldn't do normally. Can't mourn forever.
Oh,
so
challenging. That's a tricky one.
He's quirky and interesting and comic, and kind of has that sort of eccentricity that the dame has got to be, because you've just got to go beyond. You can't hang back.
Helen here from BBC Radio Merseyside's A-Team. Now, the Chrysanthemums Pantomime Society are desperate. They're at their wits' end. The young lad playing Idle Jack for their Dick Whittington pantomime has dropped out.
Idle Jack has just left us, so we are without an Idle Jack. Quite a crucial role in the panto.
A little, inconvenient. Not panic yet.
Can't do without Idle Jack, can't rewrite the panto at this stage.
What do you want me to be?
Bet you can't be a mouse.
A puff of smoke, a flash of light, another puff, an arm of no!
Well, we came up with the idea of using a remote control car because we thought that would be the best way, because then it could whiz around the stage and everybody can see it and you can have a bit of a chase. For some reason, the wheels won't go round once we start kind of decorating it. But we'll get there. We've got 9 days. Easy. Pyros. Will the puss, when he's meant to be casting spells, will that work? Because the last one we got, which we had to send back, had a 20-foot throw. And when you know the theatre Chipping Norton, you're right, 20 foot would take out most of the front row. So that's a bit of a problem.
Here it comes,
and
swooping down on the earth below. Here it is. You've got motivation, it's panto. Right. Again. Kind of feeling just now is, will this ever all come together? It's rather like doing a major musical, but with added elements in 10 days, which anybody who's ever done this before will tell you is lunacy.
Some great news from the Chrysanthemums Pantomime Society. We've heard that Tom has been chosen and will be taking part in Dick Whittington.
What are you doing down there, Jack?
I'm getting up!
I can't really think of a better part for me to play. It's a dream come true at the moment, it really is. Quite like it.
I do feel stressed at the moment because people won't learn their lines, and it's not hard.
All I see is turn to dust. Sorry,
I cannot bear the pain of one last look at the city.
I cannot bear the pain of one last look at the city. I am innocent of the crime of which I am accused.
I don't know what she's been doing for 13 weeks, but she doesn't know those lines. She's got 1 week to go.
Tonight's rehearsal has been quite disastrous. Firstly, the King Rat rang to say he couldn't appear tonight because he was called away with work. Then, as we were just about to start rehearsals, Hake, who works for the emergency services, was called away on an emergency call, so that scuppered any ideas of comedy that we had. Pianist arrived 20 minutes late, so the whole thing was a complete disaster, but topped with Dick Whittington was taken to hospital, unable to move, as it looks like she's trapped a nerve in her neck.
Well, I'm usually excited through them all, actually. You complain bitterly, you know, in the morning when you've got to get up and come in and think, why am I doing this? But yeah, once the music gets going, you hear the kids yelling. Yeah, it's fun and I'm excited.
I am Prince Michael of Donegal. But her hair...
Shane, I thought, was wonderful. The response he got was wonderful. He all screamed as soon as he appeared, and he really sort of sparkled, just what we wanted. He's not just a member of a boy band, he's a performer.
I'm still almost in panto mode, so I'm still coming down. Not from the happiness, because it was a great show, or anything, just because, you know, it's panto, right? We've got another show in about 2 hours or whatever it is, so same again, you know what I mean?
It felt fabulous. A great audience, of course, which helps on a first one, you know, to really crack off with a good one. Yeah, I was very pleased.
Enjoy the show? No, it's because I can't do anything now. And once tonight's on, I can't stop the show and say, actually, could you just rerun that scene? Can't do it. It's that kind of helplessness. I'm hoping the maths is going to work tonight. I am very likely to be in the bar not watching it because I don't want it to go wrong.
Ladies and gentlemen, 10 minutes.
10 minutes, that's quite scary.
Bet you can't be a mouse.
Of course I can. I'll puff of smoke. I'll flash of light.
Big relief. Big relief the mouse worked. Stress is gone, exactly. It's now theirs. They're off. I don't have to do any more.
Physically, I'm absolutely shattered. I worked yesterday here from 7:45 in the morning till I got home at 1:55 this morning. Mentally, I'm okay about it really now. I've had my day of worrying about it, and it's going to happen tonight, and it'll happen regardless of whether I worry about it or not now. So.
I hope it's going to go well. I'm a bit nervous, but...
Happy about your words?
Yeah, I'm feeling confident, but I'm not going to get too confident, touch wood, in case I do forget him.
Dick Whittington, and this is my cat, Tommy. Meow.
I've enjoyed it so much. It's been a great night.
I really have a sense of achievement when it all comes together and you see the children's faces walking out of the theatre, whether they're relieved to be leaving or not. It is good, yeah. Happy ending, yes, they all lived happily ever after.
And while sadly Dick Whittington on Merseyside has now finished, there's no shortage of pantomimes all over Britain in the coming weeks. Now for our look at what's coming up in arts and culture. First, here's Annie Mac on pop.
Eminem has sold over 65 million records to date, and Curtain Call, his farewell album, is a solid reminder of how and why he became the world's favourite rapper. When I'm Gone is just one of 2 new tracks on Curtain Call. It's written in the form of a posthumous letter to his daughter Hayley, and it really shows us Eminem at his best. Candid, contemplative, and shock horror caring. Already tipped as the hot new band for 2006, Guillemots are a troupe of highly skilled musicians from around the world who make joyous indie pop. There's double bass, there's horns, there's piano, but most of all there is lead singer Fife Dangerfield's spine-tingling voice, which would set him soaring to pop stardom this time next year. Single Trains to Brazil is out next week. And now Charlotte Mullins on art.
Kerry James Marshall's paintings fuse African-American history with street culture and Western art. The Chicago-based Painters Survey Show here at the Camden Arts Centre in London draws on styles as diverse as medieval icon painting, folk art and graffiti, as he tackles everything from the civil rights movement through to gang warfare. The exhibition continues until January and then tours to Gateshead, Walsall and Oxford. Samuel Palmer Vision and Landscape continues at the British Museum in London. Palmer, an artistic prodigy, was transformed by a meeting with William Blake into an influential visionary painter. His poetic landscapes continue to fascinate today, as they did when they were created 150 years ago. And now Stuart Maconie on DVDs.
Hearts and Minds is Peter Davis's 1974 Oscar-winning documentary about the Vietnam War. It's Michael Moore's favourite film, apparently, but don't let that put you off. This is no shrill polemic a la Moore. A much more subtle and thoughtful picture emerges here, albeit of an absurd, barbaric and entirely misplaced enterprise. In 1966, even the all-powerful Beatles had to relinquish the #1 album slot for a while to a rival. Yes, the Beatles had sex and drugs and rock and roll, but their rival had nuns, Nazis and naggingly catchy tunes.
The hills are alive with the sound of music.
Even if you're resolutely impervious to the charms of camp, you must find something to enjoy in the sound of music, perhaps the special sing-along feature in this anniversary box set. Julie Andrews is bright as a button, Christopher Plummer is imperiously handsome, the kids are cute, and these may be just some of your favourite things.
Next month, filming begins on the latest James Bond movie, Casino Royale. The new Bond, Daniel Craig, may be blonde, but the rest of the formula will be there as big and bold as ever, including the lavish, sinister, colossal sets of the kind invented by legendary production designer Ken Adam. The Culture Show's Lawrence Pollard met up with Ken Adam to talk about designing some of the most spectacular sets in film history.
In the early 1960s, the fantasies of millions of cinema-goers were created in the imagination of one man, production designer Ken Adam. In films such as Goldfinger, You Only Live Twice and Thunderball, Adam created a look. Sleek architecture, high-tech gadgets of vast scale, all unmistakably cool.
The 60s was probably the most exciting period in this country. I was infected by that period and tried to reflect it in my designs.
Adam was born in Berlin in 1921, but with his Jewish family he fled to Britain aged 13. When the Second World War broke out, Adam became the RAF's only German fighter pilot. After the war, he began working in film design, and in 1963 collaborated with director Stanley Kubrick on the definitive Cold War movie, Dr. Strangelove.
I always like to doodle first, a very rough sketch. And Stanley looked at those doodles and he loved it. And when I came up with this triangular shape, he said to me, "Isn't the triangle the strongest geometric form? How are you going to treat the surfaces?" And I said, "That's reinforced concrete." He said, "Good. So it's like a gigantic bomb shelter." I said, "Yes." "What about the circular table in the middle?" He said, "Can you cover it in green felt?" I said, "Stanley, it's a black and white picture." He said, "I don't care." I want to give the feeling that everybody is playing poker with the fate of the world.
If, on the other hand, we were to immediately launch an all-out and coordinated attack on all their airfields and missile bases, we'd stand a damn good chance of catching them with their pants down.
Kubrick rightly decided that the only way he could make that film successfully is to do it as a black satire, and that's why it worked so well.
Gentlemen, you can't fight in here. This is the war room.
Reagan, when he became president, asked his chief of staff if he could look at the war room. And the chief of staff said, "What war room, Mr. President?" He said, "Well, the war room in Strangelove."
Ken Adams' War Room was an historic triumph of production design. On the James Bond films, he was given the freedom to indulge his imagination, and the result was the Bond style. For example, in Thunderball, Adam designed a set which is still being imitated and parodied, Spectre headquarters.
I wanted to get away from the innumerable boardrooms I'd designed with big board tables and so on. So I came up with the idea of these parallel chairs, and each chair having a little computer console and everything, and it was very contemporary at that time. And then, of course, the chair disappearing and then coming up empty was a great joke.
When was it first pointed out to you, Ken, that you design a lot of rooms which turn into something else at the flick of a switch?
I don't know. I think that probably came with the Bonds. The Rumpus room in Goldfinger, everything had to move. The billiard table turned around and became a control panel, and I even made the bar turn round. The stainless steel fireplace had to come down as a gas chamber. The model of Fort Knox came out of the floor. It was creating an escapism for the cinema-going audience.
As the Bond series went on, each film had to outdo its predecessors. Ken Adam competed with himself by designing and building some of the largest sets ever seen. Now, with You Only Live Twice, it features the famous volcano, which disguises a missile silo, which was said at the time to be the most expensive set ever built, $1 million.
Yeah.
Did it get easier with more money, or did it get more difficult?
It got easier to build these enormous sets with more money. It became much more difficult because there were no longer film sets as we know them, because you had to consult engineers and all sorts of specialists.
Where did you build it? How do you go about constructing something like that?
We built it on the back lot at Pinewood. The actual crater was 460 feet, so it was enormous.
And it's built out of what? Out of steel and then dressed with...
Out of steel, and the surfaces of the volcano were plaster cast. We were obviously all very concerned whether it would all stand up. You know, there are many things that could go wrong, like the helicopter flying into the set through the crater.
So you did that, that's real?
Yeah, that's for real, yeah. And I didn't know what cross currents or downdrafts he would find. Fortunately, it worked.
Never to be outdone, Adam then designed what was at the time the largest set in film history, the sub-eating supertanker in The Spy Who Loved Me. It was opened in 1976 by Prime Minister Harold Wilson. But soon, no one would have to build sets on this scale, because by the 1990s, a new generation of special effects would revolutionize film design. And what do you think has been the effect of computer-generated imagery and this kind of thing? What's been the effect on set designers?
On set design, well, I mean, the sky's the limit. The great thing about computer-generated images is that you can do anything. And if you want 300,000 people attacking some fortress, you have 300,000, but it's not believable. I think it's a fantastic tool, but use it as a tool.
And what do you think is the effect that it's had on the audience? Do they still believe films in the way that they believed?
No, I don't think so. What we tried to do was not to cheat the audience, or as little as possible. All the special effects were real. I mean, the ejector seat in the Aston Martin worked. We had a jetpack in Thunderball, which somebody found in the United States, which actually worked. We had 400 or 500 stuntmen abseiling from the roof of the volcano. They were real. So the audiences believed that.
At the age of 84, Ken Adam is still designing in the same room at the same desk, though on a somewhat smaller scale than before.
I don't want to go down in posterity for having created a monument, you know. I'm never sorry to see a big set or something destroyed afterwards, provided it has been well filmed and well lit and well used.
And a book by Christopher Frayling called Ken Adam, The Art of Production Design is published by Faber & Faber. That's it for this week. Next week, from Gollum to King Kong, Andy Serkis on Playing Monsters, Jarhead, a new movie from Oscar-winning director Sam Mendes, and Richard Ashcroft, former singer of The Verve, on John Lennon and the great British pop song. Good night.
If you missed Book of the Week on Radio 4 today, then grab the opportunity to listen to it again by logging on to bbc.co.uk/radio. An exclusive for Radio 4 this weekend, broadcast for the first time in the UK, a frank interview with John Lennon, where he discusses the Beatles' split and what he thought of McCartney. That's Lennon, the Wenner Tapes at 7 this Saturday on Radio 4.
Egypt. I find myself alone with a terrible truth. The Bible, the Word of God, is wrong.
The search continues Sunday at 9 on BBC One.
BBC Two is wishing you a good night now as we hand over to BBC News 24.
Sell land alongside their own existing property for a profit after they've got planning permission, and basically
that's a hell of a lot. I mean, is that the shortfall?
Well, no, it's not. It's not actually, but it's part of. He's looking for ways of raising it. Needless to say, all the property experts have waded in to describe it as absolute madness, and it'll kill off the property market just as it's starting to get back on its feet.
So, where does the plan to build so many thousands of new houses go?
Well, he's very keen to encourage people to do this, but obviously there's a slight issue here with the tax. I mean, what the property experts are saying is that this could raise as much as £100,000 per acre on a greenfield site, so it's a really significant amount of money.
Is that going to encourage more brown site development then, do you think?
It could do. I mean, the government's been very keen to develop brownfield development, and John Prescott's been pushing ahead with that over the past few years. But this is really a revenue-raising issue, as far as most people can see.
Would it affect the Olympic building scheme?
Gosh, it could well do, but of course most of that land is being compulsory, or a lot of it's being compulsory purchased, and businesses are being relocated out of the East End of London to make way for it.
Okay, so next?
Yeah, the next one was The Independent. This is a special pull-out on who is David Cameron.
Pull-out.
This is the question that you'll be asking if you've had your head buried in a hole for the last couple of months. And on to where David Cameron, who obviously we'll hear on Tuesday, whether he's won the leadership campaign within the Tory party.
A virtual unknown a couple of months ago.
Well, you know, he's only been an MP for 4 years. I mean, the most interesting thing about him, I guess, is the fact that Alistair Campbell actually says in there, you know, is he a man to survive in this era of spin? And of course, the fact is, he was in fact a spin doctor for a leading TV company. So one could say, yes, he probably is the man to succeed.
A bit of copycat there, do you think?
I think so.
That's, of course, reflecting the Tory party's liking of youth, presumably.
Yes, well, he's clearly seen as the man to appeal to younger membership. I mean, David Davis is 56. Peter Riddell in the Times today actually says that David Davis won't be as far behind David Cameron as everybody thinks.
I was going to say, it isn't going to be the youth of the Conservative Party that's going to be voting.
No, it's not, unfortunately. It's the so-called Blue Rinse Brigade, basically people out in the shires and Tory party associations around the country.
We wait and see.
Yeah, be interesting.
Next.
Well, Telegraph business section. Jeff Randall has a really cutting piece of analysis on Lord Black, who's charged overnight in the US with fraud. Jeff basically concludes that Lord Black and his wife Barbara Emile, who in fact Jeff worked with at the Sunday Times a few years ago, were really too nasty to people on the way up the greasy pole, and now that they're on the way down, they don't have any friends. And in fact, Jeff rather amusingly, I guess, describes Barbara Emile as the lady who put the Sheik into the chicanery with which they're both accused. So a pretty cutting piece of analysis all round, I'd say.
Today, I mean, he was in court, wasn't he, for the first time, and,
Yeah.
and strenuously denying any.
Yes, and you know, there's a lot of bluster there, but I think one could say, I mean, the fortunate thing for Lord Black so far, anyway, is that he's been spared the so-called perp walk, which is where leading executives at companies like WorldCom and Enron were basically paraded in handcuffs in front of the world's media. So he's you know, he's still kind of got the upper hand as far as one can tell.
And he's got to reside either in Canada or in
That's
the United
right.
States.
Yeah.
So
So
not a hardship for him necessarily.
not a huge hardship. He's still got a few pounds. Yeah.
Okay, and next?
The next one's The Guardian, front page. This is Tony Blair accused of a sellout over an EU rebate deal. Now, obviously, the UK presidency, I mean, getting a deal on the rebate would be the pinnacle of Tony Blair's presidency of the EU. And what he's said so far is that he would only consider handing back some of Britain's £3 billion a year rebate if they looked at the common agricultural policy and reformed that, which obviously would affect the French. And basically, to avoid a huge split in Europe, he's now signalled that he'd be willing to hand back about £1 billion of that rebate.
Would that be a good deal for Britain?
Well, a deal on the budget would be good for Europe. But as to whether it's good for Britain, well, you know, if you're handing back a third of your £3 billion rebate, I guess some people would say not.
Okay, and
well, the next one, this is also in The Guardian, slightly amusing, I guess, on one level. David Irving, he's the controversial historian who was jailed in Austria last week. He discovered, to his delight, that 2 of his books were actually in the prison library in Vienna. And he asked the guards, apparently, if he could sign them, which they apparently said, yes, you can. They have actually now withdrawn the books from the library, but a prison spokesman assures everybody that they were only taken out 5 times in the past 20 years. So, not well read.
No. I wonder who took them out.
I don't know, but it's a hugely embarrassing. I mean, basically, he's been jailed for denying the Holocaust, or on allegations of denying the Holocaust, and you know, here are his books in the prison library. So kind of embarrassing.
Yes, exactly. And finally.
Yes, well, I couldn't resist this one, actually. This is Jamie Oliver, Jamie's School Dinners. The programme is now being aired in Germany, and he's been asked to tackle German pupils' predilection for sausages at lunchtime. And I guess, unfortunately, the conclusion one can read about when you see what German pupils are actually eating, it's not great stuff, and basically their food is deemed to be the worst in Europe.
Oh, the worst.
Yeah.
Just in case they didn't get it the first time round.
Right.
It's somewhat ironic, isn't it, that British food now has a good reputation. In the past, it hasn't had a particularly
it's been pretty
good
dire,
one at all
I think,
in Europe, has it?
Budget chips with everything, and
Yes.
crisps all round. Yeah, I think it's interesting to see that other European countries have got similar problems to us.
Okay, Guy Dresser from Reuters, many thanks for joining us for that. Well, now for the Harry Potter generation, obsessed with all things magical, its name couldn't be more appropriate. On Thursday, the curtain went up at the Unicorn Theatre, a new professional playhouse designed just for children.
Instead of living up to its name and vanishing into the mists of time, the Unicorn Theatre has risen from years of disarray and taken up residence in the country's first purpose-built theatre for children.
I said,
Today's launch has taken decades to realise, but one of the art world's luminaries thinks it will last.
and I thank you not only for the children who are here, but for the children who will come, hundreds of years, maybe thousands of years ahead.
His optimism is matched by the enthusiasm of some of the day's youngest guests. It's expected that more than 100,000 children will pass through this auditorium every year, marking what some are already calling the beginning of a golden age for children's theatre and mirroring what we've already seen in literature and cinema.
Don't cry, little girl.
A literary classic, Tom's Midnight Garden, will be the theatre's first production. The aim of the theatre is to put quality writing and storytelling first, something one of the theatre's greatest champions thinks is as important as the air we breathe.
Stories give children friends, friends whose behaviour we can admire or condemn. We can emulate, we can be brave as they're being brave, or kindly as they're being kindly. So stories have this very rich effect on our lives. We need them. Without stories, we wouldn't really be fully human at all.
Simple entertainment, far removed from the special effects most children take in their stride. It's hoped, though, that one magical experience on the stage will make children theatre-goers for life. Razia Iqbal, BBC News at the Unicorn Theatre.
Let's take a look at the weather now with Kirsty McCabe.
Hello there, good morning. For most of us, we're going to be waking up to a fairly wet and windy picture. The rain's piling in overnight, and it will be very wet for some, especially towards the south coast, where we're going to have frequent heavy, blustery, thundery downpours. Now, as well as the heavy showers, the wind's very strong here. Now, we could see gusts of around 50, 60 miles per hour along the coasts. And at this time of year, we've actually got the high tide coming in, so that's not good news. A risk of flooding really along the Dorset coastline, and a risk of flooding elsewhere, I think, over the next 24 hours or so across parts of Wales and the southwest corner of the UK. We've got a lot of wet weather to come. Further north, we've got an area of rain that tends to fizzle out as it works its way further north, except around Aberdeenshire. Also a risk, I think, of some flooding here. It's mild though, temperatures around 8 to 10 degrees. But the wind and the rain do take the edge off that. Now into the weekend, and we hold on to a blustery theme with plenty of showers.
Theirs is a universe that has to be seen to be believed.
David Attenborough on the trail of the silk spinners, creatures who shine like a starry sky, who produce a material stronger than steel, and who hunt from behind a trapdoor. Life in the Undergrowth, Wednesday at 9 on BBC One.
It's mid:30. You're watching BBC News 24. Let's get a summary of the news now. Tony Blair appears ready to ditch a key part of his Europe policy. Until now, he's insisted he wants reform in Europe before discussing Britain's financial arrangements. But on a trip to Eastern Europe, Mr. Blair said Britain would pay its fair share of the budget without waiting for a deal on the rebate. Conrad Black, the former owner of the Daily Telegraph, has pleaded not guilty to fraud charges in the United States. The fallen media baron has been indicted on 8 counts of mail and wire fraud. He strongly denied the charges. 2 men have been given life sentences for the racist murder of Merseyside teenager Anthony Walker. Paul Taylor will go to jail for at least 23 years and 8 months. His cousin Michael Barton for at least 17 years and 8 months. The NHS is expected to be in the red by around £620 million over the next financial year. The government blames inefficiency and poor management, but hospitals say they're having to pay for new equipment and for staff. Fundamental changes to the way children are taught to read have been recommended by the government. Their commissioned report says greater emphasis should be placed on a method known as synthetic phonics, where children are taught the sound of each letter. 5 Albanian men found guilty of running a sex trafficking ring in West London have been sentenced to a total of 63 years in prison. Their arrest followed a report on BBC News about a Lithuanian girl who was tricked into prostitution. Now remember, if you want more on any of those stories, you can get it on our interactive news service BBC I, either on Freeview or on digital satellite. You can see the boxes behind me. You can get all the latest news and up-to-the-minute sport, entertainment, and of course the weather headlines. You just press the red button on your handset. Couldn't be simpler.